Welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting, June 11th, 2018. Please rise for a pledge of allegiance and remain standing afterwards for a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This moment of silence is for two of our former volunteers and employees, Paul Chase and David Williams. Paul Chase served his hometown of Abington as the sewer commissioner and a member of the finance committee for many years, and was instrumental for helping expand services to residents throughout the town. I had the pleasure of serving with Paul Chase as a sewer commissioner. Also, David Williams, he's a former captain of the fire department. He retired back in the early 80s and moved to Maine, but he just passed away last weekend. Paul and David will be deeply missed by their family and many friends. Thank you. First order of business is a public hearing, but it's scheduled at 6:35, so if we want to take something else for that, we can.
Public announcements?
Public announcements. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Starting at the end. This will take definitely more than 5 minutes. Okay, good. Jim, you have an announcement?
I do. June 23rd, behind the Frollo, the Hug Foundation will be having its annual Celebrity Charity Softball Tournament. Starts at 9 a.m. and turns out to be a good time every year.
Thank you. Tim?
I have two from the library. Summer Bedtime Story Hour will be held every Monday night at 6:30, beginning on June 25th. Come in your PJs and bring your favorite stuffed animal as we end the night in some fun stories and songs. Bedtime Story Hour is for ages 4 and up and is located in the Anderson Story Room. This program is funded by the Friends of the Library. And also, come by the library every Tuesday at 2:30 for our drop-in story hour beginning on July 3rd. Kids ages 3 to 5 are welcome to come and join us in singing some fun songs, listening to some of their favorite stories, and participating in simple crafts. This program is located in the Anderson Story Room and is funded by the Friends of the Library.
Thank you very much. Tom?
Okay, opening day of Island Grove Pool, hosted by Abington Recreation, Saturday, June 23rd at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Come join us for opening day festivities from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We will have free swimming, hot dogs, games, and Joe's Crazy Critters. And also, June 23rd, Single will be at the KFC in Abington in the Members Lounge. It is at 7 o'clock. It is Elvis versus the Beatles. All proceeds go to Abington KFC Charities.
And what exactly is Singo?
Singo is a bingo game with songs instead of numbers.
And you are the host, the DJ?
I am the host.
Do you
yes.
sing? Do you sing at all?
No, I do not sing at all.
All right, just checking on that.
He's a con.
Mr. Manning?
Just a quick thank you to everyone who came out for the Children's Fishing Derby on Saturday. We had 53 participants, which over doubled last year's participation. It was a great day had by all, and really appreciate everyone turning out and all the parents and all the support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. As Bob mentioned, that was one of the events of our 4th annual Founders Day Flag Day weekend. The Abington Celebrates hosted. I have not heard anything bad said about it. I think it was an incredible weekend of events. Starting on Friday night, the United Church of Christ had the kickoff cookout, which was very well attended. And then former Selectman Mr. Burbine hosted a Founders Day 5K and a kids fun run that was very well attended also. The weather could not have been any better. And then Bob's Fishing Derby, and then Island Grove was the place to be Saturday afternoon. Civil War encampment, Boy Scouts hosting scout demonstrations, guided tours of Island Grove, and then later on that night, the Shades of Grey performed. And then, of course, at Memorial Field, from 5 o'clock on, events, free events and fairly reasonable food, and capped it with the fireworks. So we've already booked the band that was there again for next year, and I'll let everybody know that on June 8th, 2019, we're going to have the fireworks again, thanks to the support of everyone that attended over the weekend, and for the local businesses and people that bought T-shirts. And I just want to give a special thanks, and I think Bob can reiterate this, the Abington Fire, the police, the Public Works Department, they were incredible all weekend long, and we couldn't have done it without without them,
I
so
agree.
we appreciate that. We had a very good crowd, very well behaved for the fireworks, and
Sunday morning, don't forget Sunday morning.
Sunday morning, we actually had a service at the Island Grove, was a firefighters memorial ceremony, and then we had a church service, so that capped off the weekend, and that was very well attended to. So thank you very much for coming out and providing your support to that. We have a public hearing. I will read the announcement. I'm going to mess up the name, and I apologize. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 11, 2018, at 6:35 in the Carter Hearing Room, 500 Glenwood's Way, on the application of Yaqub Abid, DBA NJ Motors LLC, to transfer a commercial garage license from Fred Means Auto, 231 North Quincy Street. Ken Coyle, Chairman. It wasn't that bad? Okay, thank you. Mr. Abid, would you like to come up, and I'm assuming this is your counsel? Okay, all right. All right.
You gotta come up too.
And this is gonna be my favorite part. Could you please state your name and address?
Andrew Burbine, I represent, we call him Jack Obaid, it's easier.
Okay.
Jack. Jack.
Thank you.
This is just a transfer of an existing Class 2 license, commercial garage license, from Means Auto to Mr. Obaid. I think the only change is the hours. They're currently 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. He'd go to 8 to 5. And on Saturday, I think they're 9 to 5 now, Dory?
9 to 5.
He's going to go to 8 to 1 on Saturdays. Everything else remains the same.
Okay. We have a parking plan. What's the same as before, I'm assuming?
Yes. Yep.
How many vehicles would that be? Do you know how many vehicles it would be?
Everything is
Dory had the, how many vehicles?
The abutters?
No, vehicles.
Oh, how many vehicles?
Is on-
There are 5 for repair, 51 customer spaces, 4 employee spaces. Total number of cars on property, 60.
Okay, great. Any questions?
Same.
Any questions for Jack or Mr. Burbine?
Everything's in order. As far as
Everything seems to
the,
be. Do we, on these transfers, do we ask for the opinion of the
Police and
police
fire.
and all taxes being paid up? And there's
Yes,
no
everything's
No
in
issues with any of
order.
that?
Yep, everything's in order.
Okay. If the board is happy with that, I will entertain a motion.
Motion to accept the transfer of license.
Oh, hold on a second. Actually, this is a public hearing. I just want to ask if anybody is in the audience that wants to speak. Any abutters to this? No, then I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote to close the public hearing. Next.
Motion to accept the transfer of the commercial garage license. For me, is the Jack Obede.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. This is not a public hearing, so I think we can do this without actually, this is, Kathy, would you like to come up to the microphone, please? Thank you. Now, Kathy was here, this is Kathleen O'Donovan from the Depot Restaurant. I know that she was in to ask to serve early on Mother's Day, and I think there was a little snafu, and I think she'd like to talk about maybe doing it all the time now, or just for Father's Day?
Every Sunday.
Every Sunday, okay. There were no issues, did you have a good business that morning?
We did,
You
actually,
did?
yeah.
Good, I'm
Yeah, it
glad.
went very well, thank you.
Okay. So they're just looking for a request to change their regular Sunday opening time from 12 noon to 10:30 a.m. Are you going to have brunch?
Yes.
All right, here's the question. Is it all-you-can-eat brunch?
No,
All right.
no.
I asked that same question last time.
You obviously didn't look on the website like I told you to.
He loves those sausages.
I know.
Right, right. It depends on how this vote goes, Ken.
Well.
No, it can't be like that. Any questions from the board?
No.
I'll entertain a motion if you like.
Motion to approve the change of hours for Kathy O'Donovan, owner of the Abington Depot Restaurant, from 12 noon to 10:30 a.m. on Sundays.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you
luck.
very much.
We'll see you some Sunday. I think the next one is a public hearing at 6:45, so we kind of have to hold off on that one for a little bit. Does someone want to take a look at the minutes, or make, did anybody get a chance to look at the minutes of May 21st, 2018? If you want, we can take a look at the minutes, May 21st. I think we were all here. Was that first meeting for you guys? No.
That was
Second
town
one.
meeting.
That was town meeting, okay. This is the meeting where we approved the heavy vehicle exclusion on Nile Street. That's attached to the,
That's up, yeah.
I'm still looking for the minutes. Here we go.
do we want to approve the minutes, or wait till...
Motion to approve the minutes of May 21st, 2018.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, what else do we have that we can do? I think we can do the... the other ones are important. We should probably wait till the time on that. I'm going too fast, guys. I apologize for that.
Anyway, we appreciate this.
We could skip to 10th District, that's not a public hearing.
It's not a public hearing, and abutters were not invited to that anyways, were they?
No.
Okay, then. Why don't we do that? Patrick Eddy and Dana George are present. Come on up, guys. You look familiar.
Do we know them?
Good way this time.
Okay, this is 6:55 appointment. It's not an open hearing, so if you could just state your name and your address, please, gentlemen, again?
Address of the building?
Yes.
10th District Brewing Company, 491 Washington Street.
Okay, great. Are you both Abington residents, by the way, too?
Whitman residents.
Whitman residents. We won't hold that against you, okay. All right, there you go.
St. Bridget.
All right, so we have the current hours on the right-hand side, which were Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 to 8, and Saturday, 11 to 4. That's what you were supposed to be open. Okay. Now, we are changing it to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So Wednesday will stay the same, Thursday, open an hour later till 9, Friday, open an hour later till 9. Saturday will be a longer day, so it was from 11 to 4, now it's gonna be 12 to 8 is what they're looking for. And Sunday, which they were not allowed to open before, they are seeking 12 to 5. Do we know if, we didn't send a letter out to the police to ask them if there were any issues at all, but are you folks aware?
Yeah, I did actually,
You
and
did?
there was no issues.
No issues at all?
Problems, yeah.
And there's no problem with this?
No.
This, Chief? Okay. Does the board have any concerns or questions or they'd like to ask?
You don't have any entertainment or anything like that, right?
No, not at the moment.
All right, that would be a separate license too, wouldn't it? I think they'd have to come before us if they wanted to.
You're just selling beer, right? You don't sell, you don't pour it, right?
We do both.
Yeah.
Both, okay.
They came probably 2 years ago, year and a half, and asked for a Farmers Series pouring permit, which allows them to sell glasses of beer now too.
Okay.
And they're all, everybody that works behind the counter, I'm assuming is tips trained, certified.
Can I ask about Sunday? Do we allow
You can ask about anything you want.
the hours on Sunday? Do we allow other bar rooms to open 12 o'clock
Well,
on Sunday?
we just voted to let another bar room open at 10:30, so.
Oh, that's a bar? Okay. That's all that.
I believe with special permit, they can open from 10 on, I believe, something like that. Anything, any other questions or any?
I'm fine. No, I'll motion that we accept their new hours as presented here.
I'll second it.
A motion to second, any further discussion? I'd just like to note, you know what the hours are, right? The new ones, if we vote. Okay, I just want to make sure. All right. I'm not trying to be a wise ass either, just, you know. Thank you very much. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No, unanimous.
Good luck,
Thank
gentlemen.
you, guys.
Well, we do have one question for you
Sure.
guys, if we could. There's a couple of days that are big for us, one being July 3rd, one being Christmas Eve.
Yep.
This year, both of those days fall on an off day that we didn't present with these hours.
Okay.
July 3rd being a Tuesday, Christmas Eve being a Monday.
Okay.
What would we do approaching those days? Is it something we could take care of now? Is it something we would need to come back before the board to get those two special days approved, if you will?
Do you folks have an opinion on that, as far as?
Well, it should be on the agenda, something, of that nature. You said the dates were what, July 3rd?
July 3rd and June 24th. Monday and Tuesday.
Obviously, there's probably no time for the July 3rd meeting, unless, if the board wanted to, again, approve that contingent upon application and no objections from our public safety departments, that would be.
Do you know what time you wanted to open on July 3rd?
And the 3rd, we were assuming 10 to 4.
10 to 4? And what, that's Tuesday, you said?
That is a Tuesday, July
Tuesday.
3rd, yeah.
I mean,
Expect both of those days, people to come in on the earlier side as opposed to
Sure.
the later side, because they're gonna have plans.
What are the hours again? 10 to 4, you said?
10 to 4 on the 3rd.
July 3rd,
Correct.
okay.
What about Christmas Eve?
12 to 4 on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it's in the agenda.
I have no problem with the July 3rd. And the agenda item is request to change hours of operation, so I do think this would fall into that. I'm a little scared about December 24th, that's all, but, I mean,
Well, there's, obviously for that, there's plenty of time for them to submit a one-day application for expansion of hours.
right.
July
You-
3rd is,
You know, if I had known this before we voted here, I would have recommended that you just ask us to be, because these aren't the hours that you have to be open. These are just the hours that you can be open. So if you requested to change your hours Monday through Sunday from 4 to 9 or 12 to 9.
But Mr. Chapin, ABCC actually requires that you're supposed to be open when your license says
So you
you're
have to be open during that time.
That's supposed to be happening.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because presumably it's a public, the license is a public service, and the service is supposed to be open the hours that you suggest, that the board, the licensing authority votes to have them open. So unless there's, extraordinary circumstances, the establishment is supposed to be open on the hours that are listed.
And is it just a question on that, because we talked about this briefly, is that town specific? Because other towns that have the same type of business, they have, like, exactly what you suggested, they can be open Monday through Sunday.
That was always my impression, but I
They
can't,
don't have
I
to
mean, I
open
could
those hours.
certainly be wrong. I
Okay.
yield to the town
We
manager.
can certainly
at that
double
point.
check that going
And that would
forward.
assume it's town specific,
Certainly
right?
go, well, again, the ABCC has always been pretty clear on that. But once again, on a one day, it's different. But we're happy to, obviously you get through over this hurdle, we're happy to double check that with ABCC.
Okay.
I have no problem with the July 3rd personally, but,
We're gonna have to come back with it.
yeah, let's see how it goes. July 3rd works out, and, then, and it's even a case where, I mean, I don't want to speak for the board, but if things go well and the hours are fine, I think you just could submit a letter and you wouldn't even have to be here, because we have all your information, we have all your insurance policy and everything. I mean, obviously, but I would have no problem with July 3rd for now. Is that the board's,
No, I'll make that a motion that we allow July 3rd,
what were those hours again?
10 to 4.
10 to 4.
between the hours of 10 to 4.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, there you go, July 3rd.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, sir.
Have a good night.
Night. Good luck.
All right. What happened to my 6:45? Right here, 6:45. Okay, 6:45. Board of Selectmen hold a public hearing at 6:45 on Monday, June 11, 2018, in the Carter Hearing Room, 500 Glenwood's Way, on the application of National Grid to install 10 new poles on Chestnut Street between existing pole 50 and pole 38 in order to bring three-phase power to the new development of 500 Chestnut Street. Ken Coyle, Chairman. There's a public hearing. We have a representative from National Grid present.
He's here.
Oh, you look familiar too. Excellent. Welcome. State your name, please.
Well, my name is Simon Young. I'm one of the engineers over in the Brockton office over in 100 East Ashland Street.
Okay. So we got a development going in, and we need to change the poles. And you're installing 10 poles on Chestnut Street between, so will those 10 poles be in the road into the development, or no, are they?
These poles, because currently existing, the pole line between poles is, I was told, 300 feet.
Yep.
So because we are adding 2 more conductors to provide the 3-phase power, it'll have a long, that is too much of a span, so we're gonna condense it down to the usual 150 feet. That is why there is the 10 additional poles in between each ones.
Okay.
So these aren't replacing any poles, these are 10 additional to what's already there?
Correct. I think they'll also be replacing because the existing ones are kind of rotted and out of shape, so they'll be upgrading the ones that needs to be upgraded.
Okay.
Questions?
Nope.
Any concerns? I'll entertain a motion or questions, whatever the board wants to do.
Motion to approve the installation of 10 new poles on Chestnut Street between pole 50 and pole 38 to bring 3-phase power to the new development at 500 Chestnut Street.
Good. Once again, I am remiss because this is a public hearing, so I apologize. Are there any abutters or anybody who would like to speak on that or ask any questions on this, the new poles on Chestnut Street? No, so I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing, please.
Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous vote, and now you had a motion on the floor.
Motion to accept the installation of 10 new poles on Chestnut Street between poles 50 and 38 in order to bring 3-phase wiring to 500 Chestnut Street.
Second.
We have a motion to second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we have another public hearing. This one, I'm not gonna forget to close the public hearing at the end, all right? I won't.
Promise?
You gotta nudge me
You
if I do.
promise?
The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, June 11, 2018, at 6:50 in the Carter Hearing Room, 500 Glenwood's Way, on the application of Luke Nyon for a wine malt common victular license, DBA Double Horse Bistro, 800 Brockton Ave. Luke, are you present?
You betcha.
Come on up. If you could just state your name and the address of your business, please?
Hi, my name is Luke Nu Nguyen.
Yeah.
I'm the owner of Double Horse Bistro restaurant in 800 Brockton Avenue, Abington.
Okay, now you're looking to add beer and wine?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, and we have available,
Yes, we do.
do we have any others available, or is this?
This will be we're allowed 5, this would be the 5th.
This
So
will be the
at
5th,
our
okay.
cap.
I will let you know that I've been to your establishment a couple times. It's very nice and neat.
Thank you.
Good food.
Heard good things.
There's nothing else changing, the hours are staying the same, and no problem, okay?
Yes.
Any questions or concerns? The owner of the Double Horse Bistro.
So there's no alcohol served there right now? Or is there? I'm sorry, did I miss that? No. No.
Right.
No, there is
Yeah.
not. We have a letter from the zoning enforcement officer that there's no problems. Any questions from the board?
Your bartenders will be tip certified, your servers, waiters, waitresses, tip certification, responsible alcohol.
Also, my daughter, she will run the bar for me.
She'll be running the bar.
She is a bar manager in Empire Restaurant in Seaport,
Okay.
so she run it for me.
Okay. And is she currently tip certified?
Yes.
We just want to make sure that there's someone always there that is tip certified.
Yes.
All right.
I'm going to that one too.
Okay, all right, okay. Let's see, I will open it up to the floor. Does anybody, any abutters, or anybody have any questions about 800 Brockton Ave? Concerns? None? All right, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, remember that time. Okay, next.
Approve the request for a wine malt common victual license for 800 Brockton Ave.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Good luck. Good luck.
Hey, thank you very much.
Thank you. They did great breakfast now, guys.
You heard what I said. You have to take me sometime.
I just don't want wrong information to get out there. You're wasting time.
All right, it's kind of early for Southfield status, but everything else is going to take a little while, I think. We can probably take it early. Okay.
You want to do that now?
Yeah, let's do it now. Is Mr. Paul Niedzwiski? Oh, did you just walk in right now? Perfect timing. Wow, very good. You can come right, you don't even need to sit down, you come right to the microphone.
Wow. About that.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
for having me.
Yeah, and maybe just tell us a little bit about yourself. I think, have we seen you before?
No,
No, okay then.
I'm sort of new on the job. My name's Paul Niedzwiski. I am the Executive Director of the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, so I've been on the job for about 4 months.
Okay, great.
As you all know, the former South Weymouth Naval Air Station was bracked in 1989, and the three component communities, Abington, Rockland, and Weymouth, as well as the federal government, have been deciding what to do with it since. It took about 10 years to get the first redevelopment plan out. As the second one started, a bunch of different things happened. The Great Recession, but also the master developer at the time, L&R, was bought out by Starwood. Starwood builds hotels. They don't do large-scale redevelopment. So that inhibited L&R's ability to carry on as master developer. And there was also a format for that property that was set up under the South Shore Tri-Town Development Corporation, which was sort of built a little bit on the Devon's model, which anticipated that that area would actually become somewhat of a municipality itself. Construction was sort of fraught with peril and not one that the component communities really appreciated, I think, in the end. So in 2014, only 3 years ago, the legislature reformatted, got rid of Tri-Town, put in its place the Southfield Redevelopment Authority. So our powers are really focused. You know, it is about taking the remaining land and transferring that to the master developer. It's about permitting projects that come through in an expedited fashion. And then we have the ability to borrow money for infrastructure. So those are really the three things that we're focused on right now. The board has really been running the executive functions of the staff until they hired me. I'm the first executive director. So what I've been doing for the last 4 months is looking at the outstanding capital liability associated with the redevelopment authority. There are three major sort of financial instruments out there with a potential total of $50 million outstanding going forward. And there was a small staff, so it was about 4 or 5. It's down to me and one other individual right now. So we're thinking about how we can staff the core functions permanently, how we'll be able to scale up operations as development starts to happen at a more rapid pace out there. But I think we're in pretty good shape. We just passed the first budget under my tenure last week, had less than a 2.5% interest and a decrease in staff. So I think we're in pretty good shape. L-Star is the new master developer out there. And they're working hard to get things done. So their first commercial tenant is a company by the name of ProDrive, which is a robotics company from Holland. And so they'll be moving their operations here. They're going to have a groundbreaking this Thursday at 10 a.m. On site. And so ProDrives should be opening a 90,000 square foot commercial facility next spring. So that's their first commercial client, and that's going well. Abington and Rockland they rezoned 2 years ago so that there's no residential allowed in the Abington and Rockland sections of the base. Weymouth took a different approach, and they've sort of invested heavily in the residential side, and they've got 1,000 units that they were given extra in 2014 that are age-restricted, 55 and older. So the total build-out of the site can accommodate over 3,800 residential units and at least 8 million square feet of commercial space. So that's a lot. That's sort of population of about 6,000 people and a lot of commercial space that's available out there. So based on the latest sort of projections, we've got about a little over 800 units that are built now, about another 600 that are permitted, and another 1,800 on top of that that are near or around the P&S stage, so we're pretty confident they're going to go forward. So within the next 5 years, we'll be at over 50% build out on the residential side, and we're going to get our first commercial tenant next spring. So that's sort of the brief update. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have.
Sure. We have 2 new members on our board, so we had asked, to get someone from Southfield. Now, in the past, it's always been, correct me if I'm wrong, mostly someone from the master developer has come in to talk to us.
Right.
That is correct, yes.
And now this is a different way of doing things. I guess we'll start with any questions from the board for. No, the executive
Is there any reason why there is no small industry built out there to support the residential properties? There's no coffee shops, small restaurants, small businesses at all. You have storefront capability, but I haven't seen any build out yet. Is there any reason for that?
I think there are probably a couple of different reasons for that. Some of it with the design guidelines required sort of the smart growth mixed use approach, which had commercial properties on the first floor and residential on the floors above that. And where there was a market for the residential, there was not a market for the retail initially. The other thing to keep in mind is that the property really comes from the Navy through us at the SRA to the master developer. Then the master developer conveys it to the final developer. So the 2 buildings that have that retail frontage under it right now were built by Corcoran. And so they are the ones that are sort of charged with trying to get that filled out. But with the Mass Light building, which is that big apartment building out there, there's retail opportunities on the bottom of that too. Retail tends to follow traffic counts. So on those smaller, more narrow roads where the 2 initial first floor retail opportunities were, not as much traffic. Mass Light, there's more traffic. So Equitable Bank will be going in there. And I think they have some retail clients that are interested for those 2 Corcoran buildings. So I think there's enough critical mass there that you'll start to see those retail spaces fill in. And I know that L-Star in particular has brought on 1 individual just to focus on those retail opportunities right now.
And as far as the fact that Rockland and Abington are focused on commercial development, is there any plausible development happening either in Rockland or Abington in the short term?
Yes. I think there's a potential for some development in Abington, and I think this fall maybe the master developer will start to look to be more vocal about that. They're in discussions right now. Some of the limitations in Abington and Rockland involve water and sewer. So Weymouth is providing water and sewer on their side. The water and sewer limitations of Rockland and Abington curtail the kind of commercial activity that you can have out there. But there have been some recent changes in those capacity issues on water and sewer side that I think makes commercial more viable now. And I think we're going to have more of those discussions over the next couple of months, really.
Questions?
Is there any talk of making another access point into that property other than the main access point currently in Weymouth?
There is, well, the completion of the parkway sort of connected it east to west, but there are, there's a master transportation plan that will be built out. They're working on the sort of internal grid right now. There is the opportunity for other access points, especially if some of the component communities really want to see that. A lot of the focus now is on the perimeter from a transportation perspective. You've got the Route 18 improvements, which will be happening over the next 5 years. And then down at exit 14, that Rockland entrance, there's sort of an east entry plan that's in its sort of infancy stage right now, but that has to be improved too. So getting to the site has to be easier in order for commercial development to want to go there. But the interconnectedness between the communities across the base, I think, is always open for discussion.
I think our concern, and as a community more so, is the strain it's going to put on our public services.
Right.
Fire, police. So I think what the majority of people want to see is an access for them, more so than just opening it up to more traffic on our side roads
Right.
in our Musterfield neighborhood or whatever. But we'd like to see some sort of access roads that police and fire could use.
Yeah, I'd be happy to sort of sit down with the powers that be here and talk about that access point. That definitely seems to be, if it's something that's important to the town, there are a couple of different ways that we can go about that, and one of those might be to sort of get it into a stage where we can apply for a Mass Works grant, and then we can use our 43D status and some of the other aspects of the redevelopment at the Naval Air Base that should push that to the top of the list, and so that's a grant. And I know I've had a couple of discussions with Rockland about something similar on the East Entry, so I'd be happy to take a look at that for you.
There was talk at one point about, on Abington's portion, a sewer treatment plant to handle the Abington and Rockland portion. Is that still a talk, or is that?
That's still that's still in discussion about the wastewater treatment facility, and whether there would be one facility there that would feed the whole, would be able to take care of the whole site. But most of the residential is already on the Weymouth system, so I think there's some discussion now about whether it makes sense for anybody to come off of that system, which would mean a smaller plant.
Mm-hmm.
And that plant would be sized to handle primarily commercial development that would happen in, I believe, Rockland and Abington. But that's, it's a preliminary discussion right now. I think once that Weymouth sewer issue is settled, we'll have a better feel for that plant. But it's only going to get smaller.
Yep, okay. Any questions from the board before?
Is there any conversation or talk regarding public safety being established on the base itself as opposed to having it serviced by the 3 municipalities right now?
No, that was one of the major components of the 2014 legislation, is that police, fire, and education were really turned back to the towns in exchange for the real estate and property tax revenue from the base. That doesn't mean it couldn't change in the future, but if it were to change, it would have to change by consensus of the towns, and it could be that Rockland and Abington agree on one approach and Weymouth might be different. So anything is possible going forward, but as it stands right now, the public safety responsibilities lie with the 3 towns.
Mm-hmm.
When do you usually have meetings for, that deal with Union Point? I mean, for the public too?
Yeah, for the public, the SRA meets every first and third Wednesday. And we post those meetings, and they're posted here. We fax it to Town Hall. But we meet twice a month on Wednesday nights, first and third.
And just a reminder that the SRA, the Southfield Redevelopment Authority, is made up of, we have one representative on there.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, I left that out. So I answer to a board, so there are 2 staff members right now. We answer to a board of 9 people. And so that board is set up by legislation, so there are 2 representatives from Weymouth, 2 from Rockland, 1 from Abington, 1 that represents the Chamber of Commerce, 1 that represents labor, and then there are 2 resident representatives to the board, so that makes up a 9-member board. And it's a good board. They're good people out there. Chris Aiello is your representative, and he's been around the project for a very long time, has been incredibly helpful to me over the last 4 months.
Now, your salary, does that get paid by people that live there, or it's not by L-Star, is it, or?
It's sort of a combination. There's an ad valorem tax, so people that live on that site pay an extra 50 cents per thousand on their property tax. That funds the operations of the Southfield Redevelopment Authority. Anything that's not covered by that is backstopped by the master developer. But as the development continues to grow, that ad valorem tax should be sufficient to take care of the SRA operations.
Now, it's going to be a kind of a weird question, but could the SRA fire L-Star? I mean, what kind? I don't mean. I'm not asking you to do that. But what I'm asking is, who's in charge of who?
So our relationship with L-Star is governed by the Development and Disposition Agreement, or the DDA, which is a contract between the SRA and L-Star. So that's available, that's online, that's on our website, and you can read through that. That establishes the contractual relationship. The bottom line, though, is we are the public entity, and we are the creature created by statute, although L-Star specifically is mentioned in the 2014 legislation. But they're a private corporation, so anything that can happen to a private corporation can happen to them. Sure. But we're public, they're private, so if, hypothetically, if there were a significant breach of the DDA, then that DDA could be terminated.
Or if they were to leave town, then it would still be someone there in control.
It'd still be, so that would be the SRA. So we would be there, we would then inherit the outstanding sort of capital liabilities, and we're working on a contingency plan for that scenario, but that was pointed out to us in a state audit earlier this year in March. So we will have something in place. We'll know how to answer that question should it arise.
Okay, thank you.
In one of the presentations, there was talk about having a walking, running trail around the outside parts of the property.
Yeah.
How far along, or are there plans to finish that, start that?
Yeah, a lot of it is actually there. Because a lot of it follows a perimeter road that circled the base to begin with. So out of the 1,400 acres, 1,000 of those acres are open space, and that open space really sort of rings along the edges of that to serve as a buffer between the community that's being built out there and the existing communities. So a lot of that is in place, and the Park Service is in charge of a lot of the acreage right now. The SRA has some, but there's a tremendous amount of sort of open space, protected open space, because it was an airfield. There are some open grass meadows that we're allowed to cut twice a year. There's some significant bird habitat out there, turtle habitat, and people are using the walkways every day. Especially, there's a nice Abington entrance into the southern part of the base that comes right up by the air control towers and then through the runways.
Okay. Thank you.
Questions from the audience, I'm sure. Joe's going to have some. Come on up, Joe. Joe has a very long history with the...
While he's coming
back
up,
to
can I
the
just
airbase.
add a
Yes,
couple
please.
points? One, to speak to Mr. Chapin and Mr. Manning's concerns, I think the points, as you're well aware, I don't know if the public is, the concerns are not simply access for response time, but considering the location right now, major FRS would have to leave town to get to Union Point, and how long they would be out of town, not serving the interests of the rest of the community, is a huge, huge issue for those agencies at the moment. So it's not just initial response time to Union Point, obviously, it's what that does to the rest of the citizens, having those resources tied up. The other point I would just ask is, maybe before you leave, I know Joe's got some questions, concerns. I don't know if you just want to speak to the event on Thursday before you leave, or now, whatever the case might be,
Yeah,
that
the
the board's
event-
been invited to.
You've all been invited to the event. It's at 10 a.m. on Thursday. It's going to be on the base where the facility is going to be constructed, which is sort of within that large circular impervious pavement that's out there that kind of defines the aerial photographs of the base. It's the old blimp tie-down area. So it'll be easy to find, there'll be plenty of signs, but it'll be 10 a.m. On this Thursday.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Thank you.
Joseph Shea, 3 Wyman Road, Abington's member of the advisory board. On the question that just was discussed on the public safety, one concern I have, Paul, is there was a fire down there in some of the new houses down near the train station several months ago. One of the problems they had in putting out that fire, there was not adequate water supply for those houses. Right. And that gives me a concern for several reasons. Number one, it tied up the Abington Fire Department as well as other fire departments for a long time, longer than necessary. Number two, to me, is a danger for the lives and health of our firefighters. What is the status on correcting that problem?
What I would say is, as the development starts to build out, there are ongoing discussions about how to service things that would happen out there. And I think one of the things the SRA can do now is to be more of a partner with the municipalities, because we share more in common with the towns than anyone else. And so we could begin to have kind of shared services agreements and look at sort of demand and different ways to accommodate the financial pressures on the towns associated with providing some of the services that are required by the 2014 legislation. I think the most important point you just raised, though, Joe, was the issue of water. And so the first issue that I raised with L-Star was about infrastructure, and in particular finding a solution to the permanent water supply issue at the base. Answering that question will answer sort of the issue about water pressure and fire suppression.
I hate to sound hard on this, but at some point, if you don't get a response fairly quickly to resolve that problem, would you put a halt to fill the building?
Well, we have it's been responded to. The L-Star has been responsive, and so what we've talked about is what is the sort of short-term water supply issue, and I know that they funded a study with Rockland to look at the Rockland-Abington Water District and increasing capacity there. My understanding is that some of the capital improvements to increase water are moving forward because they benefit the towns right now. And we have already had discussions with the MWRA about potential permanent water supply connections coming through either Weymouth or Braintree. And there are also other options that come up from Brockton on the south side. So we've talked to the principals involved there already. So I feel like we're moving pretty quickly with some focus, and so we should have a more specific response to when what the permanent water supply solution will be and what the time frame associated with that will be, as well as a more concrete understanding of what the short-term water supply solution will be.
I understand that, but unfortunately, from the developers we've had a lot of promises over the years. At some point, I would have a serious concern about allowing further construction to go ahead if we do not have the infrastructure needed for public safety. I don't want to see people die. I surely don't want to see an Abington firefighter die, or an Abington firefighter that are tied up for many hours because there simply is not enough water. Because they are mutual aid. To me, that is a danger. On the other question on the water, yeah, you mentioned the fact of the issue for the water for the Abington Rockland portion. The original plans for the base did not call for water coming from Abington or Rockland. As a matter of fact, when the L-Star asked for the zoning to be changed a couple of years ago, there was no mention of the need for Abington water. Now, I realize there's a study going on. If that results in water, that's fine. But the development for that commercial property in Abington, industrial property in Abington and Rockland, should not be held hostage for water. Right now, Abington gets $53,000 in taxes from the land we own in Abington. It's mostly undeveloped. We paid $31,000 back in an assessment. We have many requests on public service. We're running a deficit. So, I mean, I would think that, from the town's point of view, and I understand this being worked on, but I would hope we will see something by this fall. And I would assume that the L-Star will be coming here to give an update to all the towns. The issue on the compliance with the state audit issues, they're concerned about the low reserves. You meant, the question was raised, and you brought up that if L-Star either defaulted or pulled out. And this was discussed by the advisory board. I'm the one who made the motion that they put $1.1 million in the reserves, because I think by your own estimate, that will allow the SRA to run for 3 months. I believe the board of directors only voted $400,000. That means if something goes wrong with the relationship with L-Star, for whatever reason, there's a very, very narrow opportunity for anything to happen. I wish that had the $1.1 million, because I think otherwise we're running a danger. And I hate to say, we would lose control, because as you mentioned, if we can't pay those bills, we're going to end up in receivership. It means all the controls. You mentioned something earlier when we were talking about some of the development issues in the act. Did you use the word 40B?
No, 53D.
53D, okay.
Gentlemen, can you just talk into the microphone, just, I want to make sure people get, both these can hear. That's
right.
They might be picking it up, but I'm not sure, so I just want to make sure.
All right. And one further question. We have a MIPA study going on, I believe. Is there any more word on what the status of that is and when the public presentations would be? This is this presentation for what the impacts are going to be of the current base plans.
Yeah, the MIPA process is underway and should be completed next spring. So I think there'll be a series of public meetings that will happen between now and then. I want to thank Joe, and I want to thank the advisory board for their input on the budget this year. They did recommend that we take some of the free cash that we have and put it into reserves. And so although it wasn't 1.1 million, it was 400,000 plus a budget policy that says any future surpluses would be deposited into that stabilization fund. It's a major step forward to make the SRA itself a fiscally responsible agency. So that's good. And then the infrastructure question is the big question. And so there's as it stands now in the 2014 legislation, the master developer really controls vertical and horizontal development on site. Although I think there's a larger role that the SRA can play in at least financing the horizontal development to make sure that we have adequate infrastructure going forward. And then the final point that goes to sort of the public safety issue and some of the other issues that have been mentioned tonight is it would be helpful, and I would love to get this kind of input from all three towns. Like, what are your performance measures of the project? So what are the things? I mean, you mentioned what you financially take out of the project, what you put into the project. To me, that's a good performance measure, and so maybe that's something that we can figure out how to calculate and then look at on an annual basis. So I would be very open to that.
I also, in the few meetings I've had with Paul since on the advisory board, I found them very open, very willing to help and pushing and trying to resolve some of the issues, especially the issues found in the state audit on the need for the SRA to be able to stand on its feet more independently, and the need for the staffing we need to and try to address this need for stabilization funds and so forth. Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? Not any questions from the board?
I just have a question on, I think a while back, and I don't know if it exists anymore, but Union Point did they have a treasurer that collected the taxes or whatever, and it went to Union Point? Is that changed?
Yes.
Is that, can you explain how that changed,
The
please?
SRA had a treasurer. That treasurer had been around since the Tri-Town days. So in the transition in 2014, a lot of the property taxes that were generated on site were still going to the SRA, just like they went to Tri-Town through the treasurer, and they were distributed similarly. But that was a one-year transition, so that the towns had a certain time under 2014 to adopt zoning and regulations in order to collect that property tax themselves and assess that property on their own. And so that's the current situation. The treasurer is no longer with the SRA. So right now it's me, and it's our land use administrator who's really in charge of planning and engineering. And so one of the things that we're trying to refocus on is what is that core financial component of the SRA going forward. It's certainly not assessing and collecting of taxes. It's more long-term capital borrowing, probably.
So who would be collecting the taxes? Is it Weymouth that is collecting it now, or for the properties that are there now?
Yes.
Or
Weymouth collects the property tax from the residents on site.
Tom, Abington collects for the land, Abington, Rockland, build and collects land in Abington.
Okay,
Yep.
Abington assesses assessment, that values.
okay.
Rockland and Weymouth are the same.
Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, the meeting on the first and third Wednesday, where do you meet?
We meet at the SRA offices, which are at 223 Shea Memorial Drive.
What memorial?
Shea,
Jay?
S-H-E-A.
Thank you.
So it's the building that's sort of next to the jet, the little white building there.
It's on the
And that's subject to, that's an area that's gonna be developed, so we'll move at some point, but I think we'll be there for the next year.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Audience, last chance? Do you want to plug, you have some kind of events up there now, or some kind, is that it? Is that SRA events, or is that?
Those are L-Star, the master developer has taken the hangar, which is one of the main remaining sort of architectural features on site, and they've created a place called the Hangout. And so they've brought in shipping containers, and they have a beer garden up there, and so on Friday, Saturday, and Sundays now through, I think, Labor Day, there's going to be activities up there for residents. They've had some huge crowds. So I would say it's probably something you should take a look at if you're interested.
Anybody that hasn't been up there in a while, it's amazing what's going up, mostly in Weymouth, but it's amazing what's happening up there, and I urge you to go, and even if you just walk the pass off of Spruce Street, it's really nice up there, so, and it's being developed pretty quickly, so it won't be long, I hope, before Abington sees some money. Thank you very much for coming, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Before we finish our action discussion items, does anybody in the audience have any public comment on issues that we're going to be discussing later on? You'll get a chance to talk about them at that point, but if anybody wants to bring something up that's on the agenda, you can feel free to do that. Thank you, Joe, for asking such good questions. We appreciate your help. Status of complete streets. I had asked DPW Director John Stone to come in and let the board know what's going on, because as I keep stating, there's been some new members. So and I'm just going to read a little bit of what, although DPW Director John Stone was unable to attend the meeting personally, upon your request, he did put together the attached report pertaining to the following. These are some of the questions that I told me would be asking. Chapter 90 funded work, pothole road maintenance, planned road work for FY 2019, which starts July 1st. Future road plans, complete streets, which we can talk about, our board approved that. And in addition to their efforts, as cited by Community Preservation Committee Chairman Paul Molliker at the town meeting, are listed some of the things that were funded through that, and the town road inventory with prioritization based upon assessment that John Stone prepared last year and provided to us on the board. So it's kind of a big document to read. What I would like to, if we could, is put this on the. A lot of people are asking, when's my road going to be taken care of? Would something like that be able to put on the website, town's
Absolutely,
website?
yes,
I would
absolutely.
appreciate this.
That's a good idea.
I'm going to read a little bit of this, and I don't want to bore you, but there are quite a lot of things being done in town, and more than likely, if your street's really a mess from this past winter, it's on the list to be taken care of this year. Let's see. This year, we've paved through Chapter 90 the following roads: Allen Street, Doris Drive, Isabel Road, Linda Street, Martin Street, Peregrine Road, Priscilla Alden Road, and Mayflower Ave. All of the above were in terrible condition, and we were up there constantly filling potholes Most towns subcontract raising the castings during paving projects, but we do ours in-house. Takes a bit longer, but the price to outsource is $700 per structure, so we're saving a lot of money, which we can spend on other streets. This year, we have the following roads scheduled to be paved. And again, when I say this year, I mean after July 1st, that's when the funds become available. Glenwood's Way, this road will be funded through the new high school, middle school project that we are looking to start shortly after school gets out. That will also take care of the structure at the end.
The round?
What's it called?
The Cedra Monument,
Yeah,
yes.
Cedra.
Actually,
Cedron?
Cedra.
Cedron, yeah,
I've actually
Cedron,
gonna
all
get
right.
And
that.
It's a pain in my head.
That will be reworked. Greenwood Street is funded by the Water Department. Oakland Circle funded by the Water Department. Summit Road funded by the Water Department. Wyman Road funded by the Water Department. Temple Street funded by the Water Department. Vineyard Road funded through Chapter 90. This road is suffering from structural failure and has sinking trenches. We coordinated with National Grid to make sure they installed their gas line prior to paving, so that's why it's taking extra long time. Town Hall lot was funded through the capital plan, and Grants Place cul-de-sac, which is funded through Chapter 90. Future roads to be paved as follows. This year, this is all through Chapter 90 funds, I'm assuming, is Hershey Lane, Captain Standish, Jean Carroll Road, Bellows Circle, Bicknell Hill Road, Shaw Ave, Colonial Road, Bank Street, Belmont, Block Street, Cherry Street, Dunbar Street, Dexter Ave, Birch Street, Ekstrom Circle, Jameson, Oak Street, and Thicket Street. And now we get on to, and again, this will be posted on the town's website, so you can take a look. And if you do have concerns, and I don't want to bombard our DPW director, but he's been very good. He's been very efficient in answering any questions. So if you have any concerns at all about your street being a mess or having issues, please feel free to call the DPW department. Nothing like passing the buck.
I know you mentioned that, and I've had a couple of complaints, and I noticed the street, it's like a rated number 3, but, and I want to check with Mr. Stone if, on Dorsey, because there's a lot of construction going on back there.
Yep.
One of the roads, supposedly, I've been told the roads are a mess. I've gone there once or twice, and they're passable, I guess, but not only that, there's a lot of, and I don't know who takes care of that, and maybe he can answer it, a lot of dust, a lot of, debris from the construction and whatever. But if I can just sort of have some report on that, because I told people I would ask for that, so.
Okay.
On what street is that, Tom?
Dorsey.
Okay, good. Okay.
Is that the new development?
We'll show our age by saying it's behind Rips.
Believed them.
Oh, okay. All right, that's under construction currently.
Yes.
Last meeting, yeah.
All right, so again, if anybody has any concerns about any of these streets that weren't mentioned, please take a look on the list and see where you stand, and maybe he can move you up if he'll take a look at them. He's been very good about helping us out. And we did our complete streets, which we had representatives come in and talk to us about it, and we signed up for the complete streets program. And this is going to help fund, I'm just going to read, as you may know, our complete streets policy scored a 91, making the town eligible for funding of certain projects. We are in the process of trying to secure a one-time grant for technical assistance through the complete streets program of up to $50,000. This technical assistance will help us create a priority list, complete streets priority list, which is required in order to receive funding for construction projects. And a couple of projects that we had in mind, a sidewalk on Summer Street between Walnut Street and Progress Street for people walking to the commuter rail. Currently, there are sidewalks on Summer between 18 and Walnut and from 58 to Progress, but people have to walk on the road elsewhere on Summer, making it extremely dangerous. New ADA compliant sidewalks on Washington Street with new markings, saplings, and maybe a bike path with corresponding road sharrows. I'm not sure what that means. And then there's a list of projects completed through the CPA, mostly to the parks, and that's continuing. And all of the spring sports leagues, both high school and youth, made it through their season successfully without any problems. And there'll be new fields coming online in front of the high school. So that's all we've got right now. And again, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact our DPW department. And anybody who's called them has raved about how efficient they've been and how responsive they've been. So, are there any other questions on the road inventory or road?
I did have one question. I know it was brought up a while back. I think it was when the Clean Streets people were in the meeting, but we had the area looked at on Chestnut and Hancock, and they had recommended the rotary. And, I was made aware today, I guess, and looked into it a little bit, that the state legislature right now has a bond bill in legislation, And I was wondering how we would go about, if it would be our board or through your office, Rick, getting a petition in our legislators to get an amendment on that to possibly pay for that, get something earmarked for us. I know that's, eventually, it's up to the governor's office on where that money goes, but it will at least let them know that this is a priority and something we're looking to do, and maybe shake some money loose, I think was the term that was used. to
Sure,
me, so.
yeah, the transportation bond bill is part of what funds the so-called statewide TIP list, Transportation Improvement Program, and getting a project on there does take some, process and period of time. But we will certainly inquire and see what, if there's any fast-track capability through our legislatures. Again, Rep and Legislator, Senator Keenan and Representative Deal. Obviously, the legislature votes the appropriation. I'm not too sure to what extent the governor has control over individual projects, but to the extent that an earmark might be plausible, we can certainly ask that question too.
I think part of the first steps we did too was, as a board, voting the Complete Streets project, and then they'll do an inventory, and that will be on the inventory, and that will start the ball rolling. So
Right, I
that
mean,
will
maybe
help.
this could be a way to fast track it, like you said, and get some much needed money. I mean, that's not something we want to do out of budget, so.
Right.
I know, I think the cost was 2 million, I believe, was the estimated low end, maybe?
There would be quite a bit of the Chapter 90 money over a period of time that would obviously keep.
Yeah, no, I'd like to
rest of
keep the.
Exactly.
The path we're going with,
Yeah.
how he's doing the Chapter 90 money, and maybe get that done separate. I just, when something needs to be done for so long and we wait so long, like Birch and Plymouth, next thing you know, New England Arts going in, and now we're stuck. We're gonna have to fix Birch and Plymouth, because we have 100 new apartments going in there, so kinda wanna stay ahead of it so that doesn't happen to us again.
Approval of commercial garage license renewals. Item 4. No concerns from the transfer. That's for that. I don't see any backup paperwork on any of this, so I'm assuming that there are no concerns with any of these, all the taxes are paid up for all these?
Taxes are paid, no concerns with the police chief. Your vote would just be based on receipt of all the necessary paperwork.
Okay. All right, does anybody want to hold any of these back? In other words, do you have an affiliation or any interest in any of these properties? Or, I know in the past, we've had some members that own properties. If not, we'll take everything on the first page, which is from AJ Equipment Repair down to LA Auto Body and Repair. I will entertain a motion to renew the garage license upon receipt of, what was it, necessary paperwork?
Yes.
Motion to accept the garage lift renewals from AJ Equipment to LA Auto Repair based on all paperwork being filed correctly.
Second.
And that necessary paperwork includes plan of where the cars are gonna be
Yes.
parked?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now, can I ask you one question? Now, we had someone, I don't know if it was a commercial garage license, someone came in before and we kind of put them on hold, right? Was that up by Spencer's Pizza? Are they on this list? We were concerned about parking there.
No, because that was a Class 2.
Okay,
I believe that one, but we did just receive their plan, and it was approved by the building inspector.
Okay.
And the fire chief, that there was sufficient access.
okay.
For
so-
that was the main thing, you're right, for the fire apparatus to.
Right, and this is for commercial garage renewals, which you can just give a brief rundown on the board, what that is. Is that repairs or sales or both?
That's repair, commercial garage is repair.
Okay.
And Class 2 is sales for used cars.
Right, and
Class 1 would
we
be
do those
new
at a
cars.
separate time.
Pardon me?
We do those at a separate time?
Yep, state law, end of June is commercial garage, and end of December is Class 2.
Okay,
And the building inspector did go out in his office, and they inspected all of the establishments, the commercial garage license, and they don't have any issues.
okay. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on page 1 of the 2018 commercial garage renewals? None? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Page 2 is from Means Auto Sales. Who no longer is Frederick
We just
Means as the
transferred,
owner,
right?
correct?
As of right now.
Okay, so that's going to be switched over. That will be part of the receipt of necessary paperwork. So that's from Means Auto Sales to Whitman Body Works on Bedford Street. I'll entertain a motion for that.
Motion to accept page 2, 2018 commercial garage renewals from Means Auto Sales to Whitman Body Works included incorporated, as long as all appropriate paperwork are filed.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous vote. Okay, annual reappointments. These are appointments to boards that our board appoints to. Does that make any sense? So, we have, and Dora, you can probably speak on this a little better than I am, but everybody that's on an appointed board, whose term ends, some of these boards are for 1 year, some are 3 years or something. Anybody whose term is coming due now, you sent them a letter asking them if they want to renew.
Yes,
be reappointed.
exactly.
Okay,
Yep, the letter was sent out asking if they wanted to renew, and the vacancies and the terms expiring are posted on the website as well.
okay.
I just have one addition, if I could, that
Sure.
just came in, actually. For conservation, for the reappointments, conservation, Mr. Jim Tormey requests reappointment for conservation. He's currently not on the list.
All right, so this is, I'm a little confused now. There's a second page where terms are expiring.
Right.
That's, now I see Park and Rec listed on there.
Correct. So there was one individual on Park and Rec, and she hasn't responded yet, whether she's planning on being reappointed. She has not indicated that she is yet. We'll continue to follow up with her, but that's why it's not on the list.
Okay.
There's Park and Rec, we're waiting on. Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee, there's one member, hasn't responded or requested reappointment. Council on Aging, there are 3 that haven't requested reappointment.
On this first page where it says Veterans Memorial Trustees, William Jones, did he ask for reappointment?
Yes, he did.
Oh, so both those, all right,
Yes, everybody on that page has asked for reappointment,
all right.
with the addition of Jim Tormey, Conservation.
Okay, so now if we were to reappoint everybody on this page,
Yep,
there would still be 1 Park and Rec opening,
yep,
1 Strawberry Golf Course, correct?
correct.
Arts Council will be full. CPA will be all set. Conservation would be all set. Council on Aging would have 2 openings.
Would need,
It says there's 3, and I only have 1 name down here.
that's correct. Yep,
Okay. And Historical would not, it would be all set. Sage, it's not listed,
with Sage, there's actually 1 vacancy now, but with Sage, 3 individuals in Sage requested not to be appointed. And we haven't heard yet from the other 5 members whether they want reappointment or not. So, and then there's 1 vacancy, just to confuse it even more. So, right now, there's no one from the Sage Committee is seeking reappointment.
so there could be up to 5 openings in the Sage Committee?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so just to clarify this, we have the page for appointments, and then after this page, if we approve everybody in this for reappointment, there'll be 1 opening in the Park and Rec, 1 Strawberry Golf Course Committee, 2 on the Council on Aging, and 5 on the Sage Committee. That may change for our next meeting, but we should probably put those openings on the, and then reach out to the other members.
Yep.
that didn't,
And maybe we can get them for next
Yes.
meeting.
And then, but also point out on the town's website, please, even maybe the town's Facebook site too, that would be great. Just these openings are available.
Oh,
We'd like
yeah.
to appoint at our next meeting. All right.
If I may?
Yes.
I think conservation, there should be 2 openings. I know Jim Torme was up, but I had to resign too to come here. And this was the year for my reappointment. Because I thought it was.
Well,
Is there an alternate on conservation or no?
No.
I believe there was. I'm not sure if she's still there.
They would still have to apply and be appointed, because it's not like the ZBA where it's a
Okay.
statutory role.
yeah. So, you know what, okay, you're correct. So Jim Torme is requesting reappointment, and you had the vacancy, of
Right.
course, from leaving. So there would still be 1 vacancy on conservation,
Okay.
if Jim Torme is reappointed tonight.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, I'm going to quickly run down this list just so people on TV land can know what we're talking about. Veterans Memorial Trustees, William Jones, Christy Coburn are seeking reappointment. Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee, Steve Wakeland is seeking reappointment. Arts Council, Maxine Berry, Beth Anderson Godfrey, Elaine Nero, Carolyn Bates, Lucy Furlong, seeking reappointment. Community Preservation Committee, Susan Weaver, reappointment. Council on Aging, Larry Keough, reappointment. Historical, Dennis Bergen. And the Zoning Board of Appeals is Andrew Leverett, Richard Negrelli, R. Andrew Burbine. The first 2 are seeking reappointment. Mr. Burbine is not seeking reappointment, but you would like to be an alternate? Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
The current member is not seeking reappointment as the alternate,
Okay,
and Mr. Burbine is seeking that.
okay. And Conservation, Jim Torme would like to
Right.
seek reappointment, so. Any questions or concerns about voting that list of reappointments? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Go ahead.
No,
Okay.
no.
Don't fight, kids.
Motion to reappoint with the terms due to expire, the list that was just read by Mr. Coyle.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Opposed?
everyone on this.
Unanimous, except for that Burbine guy.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so, one more time, folks out there in TV land, we have an opening on Park and Rec, Strawberry Valley Golf Course Committee, 1 on the Conservation, 2 on the Council on Aging, 5 on the Sage Committee. So if you're interested in serving the town, we would greatly appreciate it, and you'll learn a lot. They get paid the same as we do. Discussion on special municipal employee status. And this is where it gets complicated, folks. So, how about we do this? Can the town manager give his report right now? Then we're going to discuss special municipal employee status.
Can we do that?
Thank you very much. Sorry to bump it up. That could be an hour, 2 hours.
Can we go home if that's,
You guys go home. after
Number
this.
one, again, some of this is actually, a couple of these stating some things that have already been mentioned. First, again, I thought it was worthwhile to also compliment our public safety agencies and DPW, specifically for the effort that went into planning and organizing on a relatively short notice from the time that the Abington Celebrates Committee was able to, confirm that they actually had the funding in place for the fireworks event. That kicked in a lot of effort by our public safety agencies, so they think they did a great job. And working with Jan Prowl, who was one of our contacts here through our office, and of course Doug Ulwick, who we saw on Saturday up there, and he seemed rather busy, engaged, trying to do a lot. But our compliments to them too, and how they dealt with our office and the public safety agencies. And again, relatively short notice considering the magnitude of that event. So the second issue is Republic Waste Services. Our current hauler has informed us, and we've had a couple of conversations already about the potential increase in the cost of our recycling this year. Clearly this is not the time in the fiscal year for us to become aware of these things. We would be having further conversations this week, but the primary issue seems to be the markets, or the fact that China used to be a major player and receiving streams of recycling from the United States. Is not the case anymore, so finding other outlets, landfill space is currently a problem. We do know that other communities, regardless of their hauler, are in the same, facing some of the same issues. We've done a little homework. Our health agent has also continues to do some homework with some other towns, so we'll keep you updated, obviously, on this as this goes along, but just something to be aware of. Green Communities Program grant. This past Thursday, Dory and our town accountant, I was unable to attend due to some personal issues, but they were able to attend a reception with the Secretary of Energy and Environmental Affairs, as well as other state officials. This was at the municipal building in Franklin. And I know all of you are aware that we have achieved green community status this past year. So obviously Dory, town accountant Sue Moquin, Wayne Norling, but did really, at a staff level, did a tremendous amount of work on this. So I'm glad that some of them were able to attend. As you can see, we've got our, I wish the money was as big as the check, but $164,000 designation grant, as it's called. Once those funds are expended to the satisfaction of the DOER, we'll be able to compete for other types of grants. This is kind of the designation grant comes with certification. Everything after this becomes competitive. Some of the the projects under $64,000 is a lot of money, but it does only go so far. You may recall going back in time where I did mention that our primary goal was to get some of our municipal facilities up to speed with regard to their HVAC and other systems. These are also items that we did have an appropriation for on our capital plan. Our goal is not to have to spend those funds that have been appropriated by the town, so we can reallocate those for other purposes. But they do fit well with the green community program. These facilities are 20 years old, and it's becoming obvious in some areas. So to the extent that there may be funds available beyond that, I know we've looked at some HVAC updates, but the COA perhaps. But again, this is something that opens the door. We did get a very nice plaque signed by the governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of energy and environmental affairs and energy resources. So I'm sure if anybody wants to come see it on the wall, as well as some street signs, which you may have seen in some other communities, a number of street signs that we can post recognizing that. So some of the credit, I know at the staff level is one thing, but a lot of this, some of this goes back to years ago, some of the initial efforts by our SAGE committee to start, dealing with inventorying of facilities and just a lot of the groundwork. Some of that had to be updated, for us to be qualified. But again, this is another one of those, I think, community efforts that goes back to volunteers as well as staff. So I think that needs to be recognized, as I know a lot of you are well aware of a lot of those volunteers.
And just to mention, SAGE was recognized too at the ceremony, so that was nice.
Excellent. Well, that's good to
Is
hear.
that the 5 members that didn't want to be reappointed?
Well, I think this is probably earlier group of SAGE membership that kind of started this, probably the better part of 4 to 5 years ago, where they were particularly active. But I'm glad that was recognized, Dory. In addition, the other, you already are aware a little bit from the update with regard to the event on Thursday. The executive director, I pointed out, hit on that a little bit. But I would say if anybody in the Board of Selectmen wishes to attend that event, that is the grand opening or recognition of construction phase of a major commercial facility at Union Point. They say if anybody wishes to go and they'd like us to make the RSVP for them, please let us know. We're happy to do that. And a couple other really quick things. It was mentioned earlier, the so-called Acedra monument out here that was damaged. You are aware, I know, that we have some insurance recovery. There was some funding at town meeting to help, what's the word? Yeah, to help with that. In addition, we are hoping to either get additional, insurance recovery or even recuperation of funds from the party that was responsible. So those are still possibilities. And again, should that happen, then we might be able to reallocate at a future town meeting the money that was put aside. But we did seek funding at town meeting because this really is something we don't want to wait beyond this, summer construction season, to get that completed before the roadway is done. So, and we were also notified that in some of the more senior members, I think that would mean Ken at this point, maybe Bob, recall that a couple years ago, the Board of Selectmen did have some questions and concerns about the Washington Street, Shaw Avenue, and Adams Street intersection. We did get in line, as we always do with Old Colony Planning Council. They did complete this past year a traffic study. The road safety audit that comes after that has been scheduled for Wednesday, June 27th, which is more of a discussion with local officials and appropriate state officials, as reviewing the analysis and coming up with possible, well, first of all, determining whether or not there's an agreement, there's an issue that needs to be resolved. I have a hunch that will not be a question, and perhaps what options might be best going forward. So that's, again, culminating after a couple years of work. So that is on Thursday, June 14th. I'm sorry, that's the wrong. That is June 27th, I believe, is the date we agreed upon.
Is that
So that's
is
going
that
to
a
be
public meeting?
Yes, it's going to be at the police department community room.
So
And-
anybody watching on TV that lives in that area and has some concerns about that
Oh.
intersection,
Yeah.
please, what was the date again?
It is. It's on the 27th, I believe. Let me double check my calendar. It's at 10 in the morning at the police community room.
Could be another good thing for the website and/or Facebook page.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I believe the 27th. If that's
Actually, that's a Wednesday.
whatever we put on the website will be correct, I guarantee.
Okay.
But just only because that's something that's been out there for a little bit of time, and the process is finally
Absolutely. We
coming
just want
around.
people to know that we do listen,
And just the last note is that for your next meeting, your July meeting, we will have, council has confirmed they'll be in here for the litigation update. That is annual, and,
What's the date of that meeting?
well, again, that's to be determined, but we're targeting the 16th at this point. It's the very middle of the month. It's a 5 Tuesday month, so it's a little bit awkward. If that's an issue for people's whatever personal summer vacation times, please let us know. I'm sure we could probably get council in here if we do a meeting on the 23rd as opposed to the 16th, but
Or the 9th.
if you could let us know. I'm sorry, Ken?
Or the 9th, right?
We could, again.
Does the board have any inkling as when they'd like to meet in July?
I'm available the 16th.
Do they want to meet just once a month in June and July, or?
It has been the typical summer schedule, or whatever works.
Yeah, I'm not going anywhere.
It's a glory of being retired.
Fortunately, I'm not going anywhere either.
My vacation's at Island Grove this year.
So the 16th.
Great place.
So the 16th works?
That's what we've been,
Monday,
yes.
July 16th?
Sure. So, and that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. A couple things I'd like to bring up before we talk about special municipal employee status. Island Grove Bridge, I know that there was money in last year's CPA for that. Is there any plans as to what's going
Yes,
on with that?
yes. As you know, that money was reauthorized for this July 1 by the CPC, and we have drafted an RFP that would still has probably have a couple issues, questions to be reviewed on that by internally and maybe even by legal counsel briefly. But we that is something that I think, there's really no other word, but it kind of fell through the cracks. That was not a request by a specific department or committee or board. It was more of by a private party made that request.
Right.
So it wasn't something that was worked on by a board or committee or department. So in conversation with exchange of information with the CPC this year, we agree, would take that on through our office. And again, we do have an RFP drafted that would be available that we'll be getting out in the shorter order here.
The railings at the bridge are really showing their age, and there's some rusted spots. I mean, the bridge seems sturdy as the day it was built, but the railings are...
And this money would be for a structural analysis and recommendations on the condition of that bridge.
Okay. We received as a board, and Rick, we were CC'd on an email to Rick, and I'm not sure if they got all the members of the board because it had just switched over, but from Thomas Delaney, president of IBPO Local 393, just wanted to make, basically the title is Demand to Bargain, so they want to work on the next contract. I just want to make sure that we follow up on that.
Yes, I have had a couple emails with him and their union representative through IBPO, and we're determining some dates to go forward. At this time, and I don't think it's something that would be an issue outside of, if we get to that point in executive session, fine, but at this point, I don't know that there's a reason to incur the use of legal counsel. I hope not. I think hopefully we're beyond that point, so that would not be the intent. Right away, should that change, obviously, we'll have further discussion about that, so.
Perfect. No, we just want to make sure we act on that.
Yes,
And not let
I
us
am
fall
committed
behind
to
like the
get
last
him
one.
some dates this week.
Thank you.
We can begin.
Could I be CC'd to emails going back and forth between, at least for the scheduling of the meetings? Could I be CC'd on those? And
I would be happy to.
if you want the board, if the board would like to be CC'd, or however we want, if you don't mind CC'ing the board too, I just want to make sure we have a paper trail as to what's going on in that regard. If you know what I mean. Before we head into the one other thing, and I think Bob talked about this before. When the MBTA people were in, they talked about training in the schools, and they were all up and they were like, yeah, we're going to help, and that's never happened. So I would really like to get on that. I know school's over, but at least for next year, especially the beginning of the school year.
In the fall.
Yeah.
We'd really like to. We didn't even ask them. They brought that up originally, so let's let them do that. That would be great if they could do that.
I know Alex was in contact with them, so we'll jump in.
Okay. All right, we've asked for this to be put on the agenda. It's a yearly item. Discussion on special municipal employee status. Now, I do not profess to be an expert in special municipal employee status. It's very confusing, and it depends on who you ask. So, that being said, did anybody actually look at it, what a special municipal employee status? I know Bob brought it up, and Bob's voted on it last year, too. It's basically part of the conflict of interest laws. It's one little aspect of it. But it's very confusing, and again, it depends on who you ask, what it means. I will tell you that Board of Selectmen are not allowed to have special municipal employee status. It's just a given. I personally think that if we're not allowed to have it, and I don't think it should be issued rarely, if at all. That's my personal opinion, and if you watched any of the meetings the last 4 or 5 years when it's been voted on, I've pretty much been the only one. Mr. Irvine was, I voted no on everyone. So that's my personal opinion. We can talk about it now, please. Actually, before we talk about it, Rick, do you want to basically give us a brief rundown, because it is complicated, confusing, not complicated, but confusing, what special municipal employee status is?
Well, a special municipal employee status is a type of exemption from the conflict of interest laws of the Commonwealth, and it allows, if appointed by the board, it allows people who serve and already serve in a capacity with the community to either function in an additional capacity, or it allows them to conduct private business within the community, and, without having be a conflict of interest under the state's conflict of interest laws. A lot of the volunteers in town have, interact with the government. That doesn't mean they don't have to necessarily declare when there's a potential or possible, or I'd say a perceived conflict of interest. However, it does provide the opportunity for people to, to work and to do business with the town, who do serve the town in other capacities. That's essentially what it means.
Bob, do you want to talk about it?
This has been a somewhat contentious decision process on an annual basis for the time that I've been on the board. But I've come full circle on it, and I have come to the belief that less is better as opposed to more is better. So for the board, just so you understand, I think it should be an exemplary vote by the board for individuals who feel they truly need to have it, as opposed to be a blatant across the board, just give it to everybody.
Well, I will say that the law does require that positions be designated. You're not designating individuals, you're designating positions
I'm sorry,
within
you're correct.
town.
It's the
Yes.
positions. I apologize, Ray. So it's the positions we're talking about, not the people. So if you look at the positions and what that would mean, unless there's a huge issue involved, in prior years, as Kenny has stated, we have allowed a majority of positions to be granted the status. But as I've learned more about town government, and I follow through with town government rules and laws and recommendations, I've come to think more of the way Kenny thinks than I used to think before. So I'd like, and I brought this up because we needed to do this. We're supposed to do this on an annual basis. It's on our charter to do it on an annual basis. So I just thought it's time to bring it back up again. We generally take it up at the first meeting in June. And so I think it's necessary that we review this and take a vote on it and see where we stand when we're done.
Well, a couple of questions. I'm just trying to think here. Rick, you said that it's, you have to name the position, not the individual.
That's correct.
Yeah, we have an application here that looks like it would be signed by an individual, or is that something different?
Well, yes, I'm sorry, where's, the designation form is filled out by an individual. However, it is the position that you'd be declaring to be a special municipal employee, have that status. You wouldn't be giving an individual that status. You'd be giving the position they hold the status of special municipal employee.
So if it was, for example, planning board, then all the planning board has special
That is correct, yes. And of course, you're not required to have any special municipal employees. That's a matter of policy by individual boards of selectmen.
Now, if they have that, forgive me, I'm new here. If they have that, does that completely give them free rein to?
No, they're not in a
Thank you.
No, they're not in a position to violate the ethics laws of Massachusetts.
Okay, they still have to go by those laws, but
Absolutely.
the conflict of interest.
Correct.
So what does it give them?
So, I'm sorry?
What protections does it give them?
Well, for one point, obviously, from the perception of conflict, but I think I'm sorry, I had just put it down too. The information, I'm sorry, Dory. Look at that.
There's two sections of the conflict of interest law that are less restrictive to special municipal employees, okay?
Thank you.
One of them is acting on behalf of others, which means if you're a special municipal employee, you have more lenient rule applies to you as far as acting on behalf of others, whether you're a lawyer or whether you were a
Correct.
surveyor, that sort of stuff.
As an example, Mr. Burbine, Andy's not here, so we can talk about him, but had he been already appointed as an alternate to the ZBA, and the position of the zoning board of appeals member was not a special municipal employee, that may have prohibited him from acting in the capacity he did on behalf of a client with the board tonight. So that's the type of thing that.
Even though he's not before the zoning board itself, he's,
I'm
even though he's not coming before the zoning board, he's
correct,
still.
but he's a town employee for the purposes of the law. Even though he's unpaid, he's still.
Right.
Rick, another question. I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, anybody that's on the Southfield Development Board, who's a fence viewer, who's the Abington Cultural Council,
Yeah.
do they, yeah, it's hard. Do they not have to take the conflict of interest? Don't they all have to take
Right.
that?
Yes, the
They all
town,
have to take
the
it.
town clerk on a normal basis does send out to all employees information and regarding the ethics laws, and they have to certify that they've read and aware of it, and that goes. that is
Not
turned
just
into town clerk.
employees.
Boards and committees and.
Well, right,
yes,
exactly.
that's
Boards,
correct.
committees, employees.
And that comes from the town clerk's office. That is correct.
My personal opinion is that it's all about divided loyalties. If you ask to be served on a board in town, or if you've been appointed, and you've actually reached out to someone, I want to be appointed to this board, I think that and you folks ran for this office, and I think the loyalty should be to the town and not to other parties. And the other thing too is, I think it should be a special designation, and it should be the exception, not the rule. I mean, it should be rare that we, and there are instances, obviously, when we should vote someone a special municipal employee.
And we can't do that at any point in time.
Yes.
Right, and like I said, Ken, they all take the conflict of interest. They're certifying that they've taken it, so they know the ramifications of things that could happen. So, I mean.
The state recommends right in there, actually, our board has a policy regarding this, and again, it's 2 pages long, but nothing simple around here. But the state takes the tact where it should be the exception too. It shouldn't be a regular thing.
I mean, that's what I'm reading here, is the board's policy that they are occasional circumstances.
Right.
That they may benefit or knowledge, but limited circumstances that we would request it. And what I'm looking at, that was voted last year by the Board of Selectmen, is pretty much every board in committee other than ours.
Actually, that was 2 years. Did we not do this last
We
year?
did not do it last year.
We didn't do it last year, September.
Is it 2018 already?
Yeah, 16.
Supposed to do it
Now-
every- supposed to do it every year.
Daughter's birthday.
We missed it.
And when these people responded they want to be reappointed, they didn't,
Yeah.
Right, and, I was just confirming that these positions are on file with the Ethics Commission unless unless revoked by the Board of Selectmen. Now, presumably, a vote to not include some would be equal to a revocation, but just so you know, these do go on indefinitely, at least with regard to the Ethics Commission. What your policy is and how often you review them is up to you, but in terms of, just take a position, a Board of Library Trustee, once that's designated by the Board of Selectmen, until there's a change in that status with the board, that stays in effect with the Ethics Commission, just for your knowledge.
And if somebody requested that status, you could act on it. You wouldn't have to wait for the following year. That's your
Correct,
call.
right.
So, I guess you asked for this to be on the agenda, right?
I did.
Okay, do we
Well, I
want to?
asked her because we should be doing it,
Absolutely.
so.
So do we want to vote these? We want to revoke some of these? What's the feeling of the board? Now, part of the problem is we ask people to be reappointed, and when they were reappointed, they're assuming that if they asked to be reappointed to they have it like Strawberry Valley Golf Course, they have the special municipal employee status, so they're not under the assumption if they care or know enough, well, I was reappointed, I'm assuming I'm going to be,
But some may not know.
right?
But they could reapply.
That's correct.
And come before us and give us a good
And we do
reason.
have to do, within 30 days, we have to take a vote. It's not like, if we were to take a decision tonight to remove everyone from this status,
No, not
every
everyone.
position.
Every position, yeah.
from the status, anybody in the position could come in front of us at any point in time in the next 12 months and request that they be granted the status, and within 30 days, we'd have to have a decision on that.
Then I'd make a motion that we revoke the status of all listed on, that was voted in September 12th, 2016.
Before we do that, can we do that? It just says discussion.
Yeah, I
on
thought,
I gotta have it seconded before.
No, no, but I'm saying, no.
it's a
But what I'm saying
discussion
is,
on the agenda.
it says discussion, I'm not sure we can actually vote on it. It would have to be an
I thought
agenda.
it was for discussion purposes for a vote in July.
Yeah, okay.
That's what I was under the impression.
We just want to make sure people are aware of what
I
the
think we'd want to
special...
notify. I'd rather feel better about notifying.
Exactly.
I think people would wanna talk about it.
Yeah, give them the opportunity so that they know.
Never mind, we can't.
No, but I will.
Oh, okay, good.
I'm behind you.
In July?
I got your
Right.
back.
As an example, one of the positions, somebody's like a fence viewer, that is actually within the realm of the DPW director. This is really, again, to deal with the conflict of interest law. The other issue, as an example, would be, planning board secretary. This is on here because she works 2 jobs with the town, neither one of them they don't add up to full-time combined, but that, again, is a way to deal with the issues regarding the conflict of interest law and serving in more than one position with the town. So that is an issue that would presumably affect someone's livelihood. So, just as an example, you have members of the school building committee, who have technical expertise, who live in town, who might otherwise, potentially have another type of contract with the town. Again, potentially, I'm not saying for sure. And again, I'm not sure when this was initially requested by somebody or who that was, but I do know, there were people with technical expertise that were recruited to be on that committee for various reasons several years ago, so, those are examples.
I don't disagree with you, but then you look at Abington Cultural Council and the library trustees and the Council on Aging. I mean, I don't think those people will be representing me or anyone else in town for different...
Right, and it's possible that the individuals that had asked for designation are no longer serving in those capacities with the town boards and committees, too. So, in the mists of time, some of this can...
And plus, I see some that I thought were approved, but I don't see on here. I thought scale of weights and measures was on there. I don't see it, but maybe they didn't, maybe it wasn't voted on back in 16, but.
I think it was removed in 16, actually.
Huh?
I think it was on there.
I think it was, too.
Removed in 16, yeah.
But, I mean,
So can I put this on the agenda for July to vote on it?
Absolutely.
And we'll notify presumably the chairman of each committee. We're not going to do, of the issue coming before the board. Some of them may not have any questions or concerns whatsoever.
And I encourage you to talk to people about this, because you're going to hear a lot of people, there's a lot of fear spreading, like, oh my God, I can get sued just for going up and speaking to my, the PTO, and that's not the case. It's just, we have to follow certain rules as a Board of Selectmen. I think the people that we appoint should follow the same rules too. I understand, I don't want to take away anyone's livelihood, but...
well, Ken, one of the things that we have on here is public comment. So if we're bringing it up to vote and people are listening and they want to come up and...
Don't worry, there'll be a...
Well, that's good. That's okay.
All right, does anybody have anything else for the agenda? I thought there was one other thing I wanted to bring up earlier and I forgot, but I don't know what my agenda is, so... I wrote notes on my agenda, I swear to God I did.
Is that all up there?
It might be.
Another way.
All right, I've got nothing. Everybody else, okay?
Make a motion, adjourn.
Second.
Aye. Motion's made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you.